Welcome back, combatants, to the King of Mortal Kombat series, where we delve into every mainland Mortal Kombat game and its various ports to crown the ultimate champion of Portal and Mortal Kombat. In our last episode, we concluded that among the different versions of the original Mortal Kombat, the PC port stood out as the definitive edition. Currently, MK1 holds the title as the King of Mortal Kombat, unchallenged by any other. In today's episode, we'll be exploring its sequel, Mortal Kombat 2, and its many ports. So grab a drink and some snacks as we press start to continue the King of Mortal Kombat series. Following the massive success of the original Mortal Kombat, both in arcades and on home consoles, Midway quickly began planning its inevitable sequel. However, even the series creators Ed Boon and John Tobias were initially unaware of these plans. In an interview, Ed Boon recalled, "When we finished Mortal Kombat 1, Acclaim did the home version, and they sold 6 million copies or something crazy like that. We'd already started talking about doing a Star Wars game, and then our general manager at the time came to us one day and said, 'What do you mean a Star Wars game? You can't do a Star Wars game. You've got to do another Mortal Kombat game.' The notion of sequels wasn't even something that we had entertained. It was just like, oh, you do this game and you move on to the next game." Looking back now, it's really silly that we wouldn't have entertained that idea. And so, development on Mortal Kombat 2 began. For the sequel, Boon aimed to make everything bigger. More characters, more stages and more fatalities for a grander and more immersive Mortal Kombat experience. To achieve this, the development team upgraded their equipment, replacing the standard Hi8 camera with a broadcast quality Sony camera, allowing for higher resolution captures and crisper character images. Additionally, they introduced parallax scrolling in the stages to add more depth. Mortal Kombat 2 was also the first Midway game to use the DCS sound system, developed by Williams sound engineers Matt Booty and Ed Keenan. This system would later be used in several other arcade titles, including Killer Instinct, WrestleMania and NFL Blitz. Upon release, Mortal Kombat 2 featured 12 characters, 5 of whom were new: Kung Lao, Jax, Kitana, Melina and Baraka. Returning characters included Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, Sub-Zero, Scorpion and Raiden, with updated appearances. Notably, Reptile and a younger Shang Tsung both made their debuts as playable characters. Characters like Kano and Sonya were planned but ultimately cut due to time constraints and lower popularity in the original game. A female fighter, inspired by kickboxer Kathy Long, was also considered but did not make it into the final game. Mortal Kombat 2 expanded on its predecessor's formula by doubling the number of fatalities per character, adding stage fatalities and introducing friendships and babalities. These were playful responses to the controversy the original game had generated. Ed Boon delivered on his promise of more blood and gorier fatalities, even adding new features like controlling certain fatalities, such as Kung Lao's hat throw and Raiden's electrocution. There were even rumours of a hidden animality, though this was later debunked. Continuing the tradition from Mortal Kombat 1, MK2 featured 3 hidden fighters: Smoke, Jade and Noob Saibot. The game now took place in the gloomy, post-apocalyptic world of Outworld, a stark contrast to the Shaolin-inspired locations of the original. The story of Mortal Kombat 2 picks up after Shang Tsung's defeat by Liu Kang. As punishment for his failure and the apparent death of Goro, the Outworld Emperor Shao Kahn planned to execute Tsung. However, Tsung convinced Kahn to give him another chance by proposing to bring the combatants to Outworld, where they would face certain death at Kahn's hands. Mortal Kombat 2 was a resounding success in arcades, shipping 27,000 units worldwide. Acclaim once again saw the potential for profit and set about porting the game to various home consoles. Let's now briefly explore these ports, starting with the handheld versions. We'll begin with the Game Boy. As with Mortal Kombat 1, we must consider the significant hardware limitations developers faced when porting Mortal Kombat 2 to the Game Boy. Developed by Probe and published by Acclaim, the Game Boy port was a daunting task. With the original game doubling down on moves, fatalities and content, this version was predictably stripped down. Instead of the 12 characters featured in the arcade version, the Game Boy port included only 8. Liu Kang, Sub-Zero, Kitana, Reptile, Shang Tsung, Mileena, Scorpion and Jax. Notably absent are Johnny Cage, Baraka, Raiden and Kung Lao. The lack of differentiation between male and female ninjas due to the Game Boy's colour limitations is also an issue, though this may not pose a problem to those familiar with other versions. Most players likely experience this port in single player mode, but a second player could join via a link cable for multiplayer action. Surprisingly, the game is quite responsive compared to the Mortal Kombat 1 port. Special moves are generally easy to execute, with punch assigned to the B button, kick to the A button, start for blocking and select for pausing, a welcome feature. However, the game offers only 2 stages, the Pit Tomb and Combat Tomb. While Combat Tomb includes its stage fatality, the Pit 2 does not, which feels disappointing. The limited number of stages also restricts the music selection with just 2 tracks available. Each combatant has 1 fatality, and this port includes a babality. Interestingly, performing fatalities in this version is easier than in Mortal Kombat 1. Animation cutbacks are severe, with most moves having just 2 frames, giving the game a choppy feel. This might be the only version where you can witness Reptile get down. As you progress through the game, you'll notice the omission of Kintaro, the sub-boss. However, Jade and Smoke, who are clones of Kitana and Scorpion respectively, are included. After defeating Shao Kahn, the game concludes with a simple animation and some text, followed by credits. Unfortunately, there are no character specific endings, which feels underwhelming. While Mortal Kombat 2 on Game Boy is an improvement over its predecessor, the numerous omissions and lack of content place it squarely in the not good but not bad category. Now let's shift over to the Game Gear port. Right from the start, the Game Gear port impresses with a more faithful recreation of the arcade intro, complete with lightning effects and the Mortal Kombat logo striking onto the screen. The character select screen features vibrant colour sprites and the same 8 characters as in the Game Boy version. However, unlike the Game Boy port, Kintaro is included as a sub-boss. When a round starts, Shao Kahn's iconic "Fight" shout is present, and the audio sample is surprisingly crisp. Unfortunately, the gameplay is less responsive than the Game Boy version, with a noticeable drop in frame rate, making it feel sluggish. Blood is present, adding some authenticity, but only 1 fatality per character is included, and babalities are absent, though some might not miss those. As with the Game Boy version, only the Pit 2 and Combat Tomb stages are included, with a stage fatality available only in the Combat Tomb. The music is acceptable, with a few additional tracks compared to the Game Boy version. There's even a match end theme, adding a bit of flair. Both Kintaro and Shao Kahn are fought in the Combat Tomb, and defeating Shao Kahn rewards you with a brief animation and the same text from the Game Boy port. However, this time there are character specific endings, albeit only in text form. Like the Game Boy version, two players can face off via a link cable. While the Game Gear port has its pros and cons, it ultimately edges out the Game Boy version, though it still lands in the not good but not bad category due to its many omissions. Now let's move over to the home console ports, starting with the Sega Master System version. So here's the thing with the Sega Master System version. There isn't much to say that hasn't already been said about the Game Gear port. It's very much the exact same game. It mirrors the Game Gear port with similar gameplay, characters, stages and music. However, the Master System version benefits from a higher resolution, fitting more on the screen and reducing flicker compared to the Game Gear. The game plays similarly, though it's hampered by the Master System's notoriously uncomfortable D-pad. Like the other ports, the Master System version is an improvement over MK1 but still falls short of greatness, therefore it joins the Game Boy and Game Gear versions in the not good but not bad category. As we wrap up this episode, it's clear that most ports of Mortal Kombat 2 show marked improvements over their MK1 counterparts. As we move forward to the next generation of consoles, will we finally see a contender for the title of the King of Mortal Kombat 2? Stay tuned to find out.